cut it down.
I planted several.
It was a
but some of them
mistake.
died.
How many of y'all weed eat?
But,
Use weed eating. Alright, did you know that that is one of the best exercises you can do? I looked it
They're
up.
all laughing.
It will burn anywhere from 375 to 560 calories an hour.
No wonder you're so skinny.
And so, it works upper body, your core, and your legs. So it's one of, now, I hate it, but it's one of the, that ought to tell you something.
Wow.
You know, so anyway, I was sore yesterday after eating for 2 days.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I said, why am I so sore? So I went and looked up what the exercise
That's
was.
hilarious. You
Oh,
see
okay, good.
that?
See, I used to pay $50 to go to the gym.
All you gotta do is buy you $100 you do it.
Yeah.
That's a good answer when someone says, you haven't worked out? Hell yeah, we work out.
Okay.
We're training all the time. Look.
All right, I know y'all gotta leave a little early, so we'll go ahead and get started. And what we're gonna be talking about, first we're gonna talk about is something I'm calling Homestead Co-Opting. Now, some of you may have heard some things about like what they call milk share and beef share and things like that. It's kind of that, but we're gonna look at it in a little bit deeper detail and stuff. Okay, so Homestead Co-Opting. Now, the way this kind of gets started a lot of times is you have like somebody like, you know, Sally Fitmom, all right? And she goes to her Whole Foods grocery store and or a big box store or whatever, and she finds out that they don't have any grass-fed meat anymore. They're just out of it, can't never get it and stuff. So she's all set up. And then you got Cindy and Dan DeMann, and they live in a little apartment house, but they really want to grow gardens and have animals and chickens and stuff. But they got a size issue, and then not only that, the HOA does not like them to do this kind of stuff. So they're in a quandary. And then you got old Johnny Greengrass, and he's out riding one day looking at his pastures, and he realizes that he needed some more cows, but price of cattle are going up, and he said, just let on that, a little bit of feed and stuff, it's an overhead that he has to really kind of work about. Anyway, so he's just saying, boy, it sure be nice, but nothing happens. Anyway, so one day, they get a little flyer, and at the feed store, they happen to see it at the thing that says something about something called Homestead Sharing. And so they said, well, I'm going to go check that out. So Sally, she takes her things, and then Dan and family, they decide they're going to show up. And then old Johnny, he shows up. He rode his horse there, by the way. And he shows up. And so they sit there, and they're just sitting around talking with everybody else, kind of like we're doing right now. And then, lo and behold, a co-op is born. And Sally said she would invest in some feed and upkeep. You know, she could do that. And Cindy and Dan, they invest in some money, and then they come on weekends because they like to get out in the country, and they help do whatever work, mend fences, whatever. And old Johnny, he provides the land and the day of care. And then one day in the not too distant future, it's barbecue time, baby. so anyway, but that's one type. That's called a beef co-op or beef share. They got other kinds too. Chickens, milk, cow milk, goat milk, vegetables, fruit. You can do all of these things as you go. Sometimes they call them community gardens. So basically, you know, Rose by any other name is beef share, milk share, community gardens, egg share. And it's a type thing where the whole idea is not profit, but it's a way to spread the cost over, because it is expensive to raise one cow. And then let's face it, you're going to get it, you know, depending on how big it is, the cow when you butcher, you're going to get a lot of meat. Can one family eat all that meat? Probably not, you know. You could, I guess you got a big family. Then it becomes more cost effective. But let's say you had somebody to help you that either bought into the cow at first, or maybe paid a monthly fee to help pay for the upkeep of the cows, and, you know, then it would be worth it to do that. But you still got to have somebody who has the land to do it and stuff. One of the things that actually got me looking into this was we had a new member that showed up at our Baton Rouge homestead sharing, and he had called me a few times and we had talked about it, and he was kind of looking to do something like this. And so I said, well, I'd heard of it, and I said, let me investigate it and see what it was. So I just started doing some research on it and found out it's actually a very viable thing. Got to have all the right components, but you can, and you do have to make sure that you have it so that nobody gets kind of caught, you know, with the paying too much, or the guy who's raising the cow gets caught with more than his fair share, is what I guess the way of saying it. Now, you can buy into some of these online ones. They're primarily, even though they're considered beef share and stuff like that, their whole goal is profit. So you have some, these are from two different ones, I don't really remember the names of them. One of them is in Maine and the other one's in Oregon. And you can buy, of course, not only do you have to pay, and you get it $8 or $10 a pound, which is pretty good for beef, okay, because really and truly, they don't make a distinction between ground meat or ribeye, you know, so it's the same price per pound, which is pretty good because you're more at $20 a pound ribeye and stuff, you know, or top sirloin or whatever, is going to cost the same amount as your ground meat because you're buying it as a cow. All right, so, but if you look at the price for, you know, a 1/12 of a cow share is $550. Now, some of them, they're a little cheaper. The initial price may be a little higher, but you can get a little bit more meat per se. Like that would be a, let's say that's ground beef is what this in particular is. But some of them, they might be a little bit higher. They may be the same price, but you end up paying part of the slaughter costs. Okay, so if you're taking it to be processed from a processing house, then you buy the beef and all from them or invest in the beef. You don't usually invest other than paying a portion. You're going to get half a cow or whatever. Let's say you pay $1,500, you're going to get a half a cow. Well, then they bring it to slaughter, but on whatever day it goes already, you have to go pay your portion of the slaughter fee and pick it up. So if I'm going to go to Oregon, it's not very cost effective for me to do that. There are some around here too. There's actually one in north of DeRidder. We ran into a guy, Kings or something like that. Do you remember what the guy's name was?
The one we got the card for that
Yeah.
day? No, we should have,
Yeah,
I need to find it. We have the card.
Yeah, anyway, his daughter is starting it. They have a ranch, and his daughter was going to start that. And so we'll see. You know, it might be worth it, but I got a feeling it's more geared like this than it is a true co-opting stuff. But nothing really wrong with that because you can save some money on that. You can get, and you know you're getting good beef.
And so your local.
And you're supporting a local. Now, these guys aren't local, but there may be some local ones that we could find that would be good. Part of it is you kind of got to make sure how they're raising a cow. You know, are they doing CAFO, which was a cage fed or whatever, and or are they open range, purely grass fed? Or are they at the end corn finishing? You know, you don't want to do that if you're looking for healthy meat. Then, but you still would want to do it. You know, it still may be worth it to you. You just have to see how to do it. And you have to do it for your preferences. So, oh yeah, Suzanne, can you look in that there and pull that black folder out?
Is it like a prescription? You'd buy into a prescription?
There are those. We actually do that. It's called Butcher's Box, and we actually it's kind of like a buyer's club, and that's something else I want to talk about at the end of this one, is a buyer's club. The Butcher's Box is similar to a buyer's club in that you pay a fee to belong to them to be able to buy from them. And then once you've bought into being in that club, they have a very limited number of spots available. Then they basically use their buying power in bulk and then pass the savings on to you. And of course, with the one we do, the meat is considered extremely clean. A lot of it comes from Australia and places like that.
The pork comes from Australia.
Yeah, the pork and all comes from Australia. The beef and all comes from America, or a lot of it anyway, but they have better stuff like that. It still runs about that about $8 or $9 a pound, which is not bad, but you do have to pay an initial fee to become a member of it. I think Thrive is another one. It's similar, but they do more than just beef and meat. Butcher's Box is strictly meat. Azure Standard is sort of the same way. So. Anyway, what we just handed y'all, now this is about 10 years or 15 years old. Iowa State put together what it costs to do one of these things and some of the things you got to watch out for. So the main thing is just be aware that, you know, if you're gonna do this with somebody, sit down and figure out exactly what it's gonna cost. All that research is out there. People have been raising cows for a long time. They know how much it costs to do it a particular way. And so you basically just do that. And same with all the other animals, chickens, whatever. Those are good things. Like, around here, we kind of, most of us have a place to have our own chickens. Now, how many of y'all have chickens? I know you do, but all of us, okay? So that's not a big deal for us, okay? You know, getting eggs, chicken. But somebody that lives, let's say, in town, might be a big deal for them. So they could help pay for feed, and you guarantee them to get a percentage of the chicken. Now you have to keep, to be honest, you have to keep real meticulous records about how much your eggs are producing and things like that. Then it also becomes smart to kind of watch your hens and say, okay, I got a hen that's only producing an egg once a week. You know, let me take her out of that rotation and not, you know, meaning that because the person's paying to feed a hen that's not producing. That would just wouldn't be honest, okay? It might be okay for us, especially if we're just doing range chickens, you know, not feeding them, then that might be okay. But anyway, so in the handout though, they have a lot of information on that. Like I said, the prices are from 15 years ago, so you would have to up those prices some, but it gives you a starting point if you ever decide to do that. So anyway, Homestead Co-Opting is worth looking at, is worth considering. I don't know if we're not set up to do anything yet, but I can't say that in the future we won't be. You know, it could very well be that we want to do something like that. One of the things that we had started to do was raise rabbits, and you know, they're not hard to make. They produce a lot, but it does have a certain amount of cost to it. And we could either sell the meat, but we could co-op too. And so it's always a possibility. But then we lost our whole herd, but you know, and that was due to a virus getting in there. But things like that happen, you know. So, but anyway, now another one is when we talked about buyers clubs, and this one I think actually may be more advantageous to all of us than supposedly co-opting. And what a buyer's club is, and I use the word club loosely, is let's say, okay, y'all four and well, us six, not y'all yet, buy from Azure Standard, all right? Well, one of the things about Azure Standard, or Azure, however you want to say it, so is...
How do you say it?
Azure.
I just say Azure too.
Some people say Azure, though.
Well, they just say
It's actually supposedly a Italian word or something, so who knows how it's supposed to be said. But anyway, that's beside the point. Is that, you know, I've noticed that, like, I've seen where they have 100 or 200 pounds of something for sale, and it's more than I could definitely use in a certain amount of time. I'd only want $25, but I would save so much more per pound buying it. So let's say I'm saying, okay, and we'll just use, let's say oranges, you know, because I just bought a big box of oranges. I bought 50 pounds of oranges, or 40 pounds. And, you know, I got a good deal on it, all right? Well, it's hard for me, even as much orange juice as we make, it's hard for me to eat 40 pounds of, for Suzanne and I to eat 40 pounds of oranges in the time before either we reorder or it would go bad. So I could say, all right, well, let's me and you split one, and I'll order it, and then you pay me at the lower rate per pound, however many pounds you want of it, and that helps pay for it for me. You know, it's just the same savings I got that's passed on. So, but we might want to look at those kind of things when we're getting ready to order something, and say, you know, and another one is, now they have some really good feeds and stuff, and I'll be honest with you, I use every bit of feed I got, but there are other things that they have in there, other grains, like I forgot who it was, I bought a bunch of white beans one time.
Yeah, so.
And I bought them to put up because they keep forever, okay? But to get a lower price, I had to buy 3 bags of them. And I got it almost cost the same amount for 3 bags as it did for 1. And 1 was not quite big enough, 2 would have been better, but if I got 3. So I have a bunch of white beans, but if I'd have split with somebody, we'd have been able to, you know, to do this. So that was a good example of how, you know, yeah, I don't really need 150 pounds of white beans, okay? You know, luckily my chickens like to eat them every now and then, so I grind them up and feed them with them. But, you know, so there's these kind of things that we could do to do. And so that might be something we want, and we all are on the chat. So if you're looking at it, or even, it doesn't have to be from the zoo. I got a friend, one of the guys who goes to the other homestead, And he said that, yeah, he said, we ought to look into that because it doesn't happen often, but if you can get that savings and then pass that on to somebody else, it's worth doing.